Legends of the Samurai, History versus Myth. The Mask of Honor. In the pale glow of a blood moon, the clash of steel has long ceased, but echoes of betrayal still linger in the charred ruins of Clan Takeda's fortress. A young samurai, Reiku, stands amid the rubble, ash clinging to his armor like guilt to his soul. He has returned from his first campaign, a celebrated hero, only to find that the victory was bought not by honor, but by a hidden deal forged in shadows. His mentor, Master Gendo, a man revered as the very embodiment of Bushido, receives him not with pride, but with haunted eyes and cryptic silence. Reiku, ever perceptive and fiercely idealistic, begins to notice the cracks beneath Gendo's polished exterior, missed rituals, half-truths, whispers exchanged with emissaries who bow too low and speak too softly. A tattered letter, tucked inside a ceremonial mask once gifted to Gendo by the clan's late lord, reveals a horrifying truth. During the infamous siege of Tsuyama, Gendo surrendered a key stronghold in secret, condemning hundreds to die, in exchange for political favor with the shogunate. It was a betrayal disguised as strategy. A lie enshrined in ritual. And it worked. Reiku spirals. He had dedicated his life to the way of the sword, to the Bushido that promised clarity in chaos. Now, he finds it was rewritten, redacted, by those sworn to uphold it. Is Bushido a noble code, or a political instrument used to mask ambition and virtue? The emotional betrayal cuts deeper than any blade. Gendo, torn between guilt and pragmatism, justifies his actions with chilling calm. The clan survives. That is the only code that matters now. Reiku, kneeling before the ancestral altar, weeps not for the fallen, but for the innocence he lost in discovering the truth. Behind him, the painted scrolls of their history flutter from the wind leaking through shattered walls, scrolls that now feel like fiction. He must now choose. Carry the legacy of a lie or forge a new path, one where truth might cost everything, including his own honor. The mask of honor does not break. It slips. Blades that whisper. The sword was called Tsukikage, Shadow of the Moon. Forged, they say, beneath an eclipse by a blacksmith who never spoke, it gleamed with a subtle blue shimmer, as though moonlight was forever trapped within its steel. The blade was a gift from the gods, or a curse from something older. When the shogun's prize general took up Tsukikage, he was seen wandering the barracks at night, speaking to no one, eyes hollow, lips murmuring names of long-dead warriors. Days later, he was found kneeled before a shrine, his armor stripped, his heart pierced by the very sword he had once raised in triumph. Word spreads like wildfire cloaked in incense. Every warrior who claims the blade either disappears into the mountains, haunted and half-mad, or is found dead, their last expressions twisted with terror. The whispers grow, it is the sword that kills the soul before the body. But Reiku, still reeling from the betrayal he uncovered in his mentor, is drawn to Tsukikage not for glory, but for answers. His grief has become a hunger. He believes the sword may reveal a deeper corruption, one that infects not only men, but the very symbols of honor they wield. Behind closed sliding doors, councilmen debate not the curse, but the political fallout. The sword was once used in a now-suppressed royal duel, and its reappearance threatens to expose the shogunate's falsified records about that outcome. To some, the curse is a convenient excuse to erase the sword, and its witnesses. As Reiku grips Tsukikage for the first time, he does not hear whispers. He hears names. His ancestors. The ones erased from clan scrolls. The ones who died in silence, their loyalties sold to buy time for others. Visions flicker, of wars never recorded, of hands signing secret pacts under the pretense of sacred duels. The sword, it seems, does not haunt, it reveals. But what it reveals could unravel the balance of power. Reiku's hands tremble, not from fear, but from the unbearable weight of inherited truth. For the first time, he understands that swords do not shape history by their edge, but by the stories told about them. And some stories were never meant to survive. The blade glows faintly in the candlelight, and Reiku, surrounded by shadows, asks himself, am I wielding the truth, or is it wielding me? The woman who wasn't supposed to fight. In a world where daughters are taught to bow lower than their brothers, Lady Akino learned to draw a blade in silence. By day, she walked the path of obedience, flawless calligraphy, precise tea ceremonies, silken smiles. But by night, deep in the shadowed courtyard of her ancestral estate, her aging nursemaid trained her in the forgotten arts of the Onabigeisha, female warriors erased from most clan records, remembered only in whispered lullabies and forbidden scrolls. Akino's father, Lord Ishigawa, was one of the shogunate's most loyal retainers, a man who believed women had their place, and their place was not on the battlefield. But when his secret dealings led to the slaughter of an allied clan under false pretenses, it was Akino who witnessed the truth. He had traded lives for titles. The weight of that knowledge cracked something inside her. She formed the Crimson Veil, an underground resistance of warrior women. Widows, daughters, concubines, who had all lost something to the lies of lords and the machinery of male power. Clad in deep crimson and silver, they struck like ghosts, targeting corrupt officials and stealing incriminating records from imperial archives. Their existence became a rumor, until they struck too close to Kyoto. Akino's heart, though, held a secret more fragile than any blade. Keed, a ronin she had taken in after finding him bleeding in a riverbed, had become her most trusted sword, and the man she had let into the walls around her heart. But trust, in Akino's world, was always a gamble. She follows him one evening, after a mission gone too smoothly. In the stillness of a bamboo grove, she hears him speaking in a dialect she recognizes only from her father's court. Her blood runs cold. Keed was not a survivor. He was a spy, sent to infiltrate and unravel her rebellion from within. But as she watches him pause, looking up at the moon as if in silent prayer, she sees something else: hesitation. Guilt. Regret. Has he fallen for her, or is that part of the act too? Politically, his betrayal could bring the Crimson Veil crashing down. Emotionally, it could break the last part of her that still believed in love. In her private chamber that night, Akino stands before her mirror, blade drawn, crimson veil draped over her shoulders. Her reflection blurs with tears, not of weakness, but of war within. I trained to fight men like him, not to love them. She cannot confront him yet, not until she knows for certain which mask he wears when he looks at her. Outside, lanterns flicker as thunder echoes in the distance. The rebellion grows, the shogun tightens his grip, and Akino sharpens her blade, not for vengeance, but for clarity. The Emperor's double game. The imperial court shines with ceremonial grandeur, gold leaf screens, silk banners dancing like fire spirits in the wind, but beneath its polished serenity lies a throne balanced on betrayal. To the world, the Emperor is a figurehead, a divine presence cocooned in ritual and poetry, while the shogun enforces true power with steel and decree. But few suspect the truth: the Emperor plays a far more dangerous game. In hidden chambers behind the chrysanthemum throne, the Emperor meets with emissaries from the ghost clans, families thought extinct, their lineages wiped out during purges led by past shoguns to secure control. But the bloodlines lived on, buried under false names and distant provinces, fueled by the memory of betrayal. Among these ghostly heirs is Lord Kajimura, descendant of the once great clan Enzen. He was raised on stories whispered by candlelight, of honor stolen, of lands confiscated, of kin erased from history like ink washed from scrolls. His return is not for glory. It is for reckoning. The Emperor knows that direct rebellion is suicide. But chaos? Chaos breeds opportunity. In a private dialogue soaked with unspoken tension, the Emperor tells Kajimura, "The shogun believes I am blind. Let us prove to him that silence is not ignorance, but patience sharpened into strategy." Meanwhile, within the shogun's council, dissent brews. Some suspect that imperial funds are being smuggled into northern provinces, hidden behind ceremonial offerings, diverted to rearm the ghost clans. Political assassinations disguised as accidents. Misinformation planted in border provinces. Whispers of sedition cling to the court like incense to silk. And at the center of this quiet war sits the Emperor, calm, unreadable, dressed in moon-white robes, his words delicate as plum blossoms, yet layered with razor-sharp meaning. But the double game weighs heavy on his soul. Every alliance he forms with the vengeful ghosts of the past erodes a part of the peace he was sworn to maintain. He walks a line so fine that a single misstep could ignite civil war. At night, the Emperor writes poetry no one reads, verses not of love or enlightenment, but of fractured oaths and the loneliness of strategy. A kingdom in silence screams the loudest. Outside Kyoto's gates, the banner of Clan Enzen rises again, its phoenix crest reborn in black. The shogun prepares to crush the rebellion with ruthless precision, unaware that the hand guiding the insurgents wears imperial rings. And in the Emperor's garden, the first plum blossom falls. The Ronin Pact. They were once called heroes. Now they are nothing, no name, no master, no home. The 47 Ronin, bound not by loyalty to a living lord but by a shared thirst for justice twisted into something darker, wander the snow-draped outskirts of Edo. The people whisper their tale in awe, how they defied the shogun's decree of peace to avenge their fallen daimyo. But what the stories omit, is their true purpose. Led by the enigmatic and calculating Jinzo, the Ronin aren't just avenging a lord, they are reviving a bloodline. One tied to the ancient Kurotaka dynasty, a forgotten imperial branch that once rivaled the main throne. Their lord's death, they believe, was no mere punishment, it was the final move in a centuries-old chess game to erase the Kurotaka legacy from the annals of power. Jinzo's journal, written in cipher and ink mixed with blood, contains names, symbols, and ancient pacts long buried under state-sanctioned history. If discovered, it could prove the shogun's house illegitimate, fabricated through betrayal, assassination, and political forgery. Each of the 47 carries a piece of the plan, not just a blade, but a role: infiltrator, spy, saboteur, keeper of lore. Some doubt. Others hunger for glory. All are broken in their own way. One, however, begins to fracture. Rikimaru, the youngest among them, was raised on the tale of noble vengeance. But as the bodies pile higher, he begins to see the cracks in Jinzo's vision. The targets they eliminate are not just enemies, they include innocents tied to the regime, scholars, monks, even children of political rivals. The line between vengeance and revolutionary cruelty begins to blur. In a haunting midnight scene, Rikimaru returns from a mission with blood on his hands and stares at his reflection in a frozen river. The stars above shimmer like the souls he's taken. If this is justice, why do I feel like the villain? Meanwhile, the shogunate grows uneasy. Informants report the Ronin moving through villages not with desperation, but with purpose, coordination. This is not the scattered rage of masterless warriors, this is a coup brewing beneath the snow. A secret meeting is called. An elite assassin, Lady Tsuyu, trained in the arts of silence and shadows, is dispatched not just to eliminate the Ronin, but to steal the journal and uncover the dynasty they seek to resurrect. She once knew Jinzo, intimately. In a snow-covered shrine lit by flickering lanterns, the Ronin take a silent vow once more. One by one, they draw their blades, pressing them against their palms until blood mingles in the snow. For the fallen. For the forgotten. For the future. But whose future? And at what cost? The disgraced monk's prophecy. They called him Sagan the Mad, once the spiritual advisor to the late emperor, now an exile living among crumbling temple ruins in the cliffs of Mount Osor, where legends say the living can speak to the dead. His robes are tattered, his beard wild, his eyes burning with clarity that unnerves even the bravest. To some, he is a prophet touched by the divine. To others, a heretic who dares to challenge the sacred foundation of the samurai order. Years ago, Sagan whispered something that shook the imperial court: the foundation of Bushido is not honor, but erasure. For this, he was stripped of title and cast into silence. But he did not remain silent. He began inscribing a new scripture, the Scroll of Ashes, a work written in fragments and riddles, woven with celestial alignments, ancestral visions, and brutal historical truths. At its heart lies a prophecy. When the 3 moons rise, and the falcon falls, the false warriors will be unmasked by fire and sky. The celestial event approaches. Sagan sends his final scroll, hidden within the carved base of a ceremonial bell, to a former pupil now serving in the shogun's court, Haney, one of the few remaining believers in his vision. But Haney is torn between 2 duties: protect the order she serves, or uncover the truth it may have buried. As she reads the scroll by candlelight, flashbacks strike her, of Sagan in the Imperial Library, pointing to blank pages in the official records. What they hide is not forgotten, he had said. It's silenced. The scroll reveals a forgotten massacre, the razing of the Kingshu Monastery, an ancient stronghold of scholars who once taught that Bushido was a flexible path, not a rigid doctrine. The shogunate labeled them traitors. Sagan claims they were executed because they preached freedom over obedience. Now, monks in the eastern provinces have begun to vanish. Some temples have mysteriously burned. Others stand eerily empty, with scrolls gutted from their shelves. Haney travels in secret to Osor, where she finds Sagan meditating beneath a waterfall. His body frail, his voice a whisper, yet every word laced with an eerie calm: the sword is not the truth. It is the silencer of truth. She asks him, does he truly believe the prophecy will come true? Sagan smiles, his eyes closed, as thunder rolls across the mountains: it already has. They just haven't seen it yet. And above them, in the sky, the stars begin to shift. The shogun's secret heir. When the shogun's only legitimate son is found lifeless in his garden, face serene, a sakura petal clutched in his hand, the nation mourns a future never to come. The court calls it illness. The whispering courtiers call it poison. Behind the walls of power, the shogunate fractures. With no heir to carry the bloodline, a masked swordsman emerges from the forests of the north, silent, swift, deadly. He wears the mark of the White Serpent, a clan thought wiped out during the War of Severance, whose last members were accused of treason and executed without trial. But this swordsman fights with a style known only to the shogun's personal lineage, the silent crane form, passed down in private, never recorded in any scroll. His precision is not learned. It's inherited. The rumor spreads: he is the shogun's bastard son, the product of a secret affair with a low-born concubine who disappeared before the child's birth. But no one knows his name. The shogun, already aging and weakened by grief, begins seeing ghosts in the corridors of his palace. He believes the masked swordsman may be his son returned from death, or the specter of his greatest regret. Flashbacks tear through him, late nights in the arms of a woman named Yura, whose laughter was soft like wine through rice fields. She had once whispered, "If you choose duty over love, your house will fall." He chose duty. She vanished. Now her eyes stare back at him through a mask, on a face too familiar to ignore. But the court is not built on sentiment. Lord Hirotaka, the shogun's brother and next in line for power, sees the masked warrior not as a son, but a threat. If the bloodline proves legitimate, Hirotaka loses everything. He calls for the swordsman's head and begins to hunt him with elite assassins known as the Black Rain, warriors trained to kill without leaving a trace, or a witness. Meanwhile, the masked heir watches from rooftops, not seeking the throne, but answers. His entire life has been shadows, exile, whispers of a name never spoken aloud. He wants nothing of politics, but fate, as always, has other plans. He saves a village from a rogue samurai, and an old woman kneels before him, whispering, "You bear the spirit of the first shogun. I see it in your silence." He wonders, was he meant to inherit an empire of lies, or undo it? In a candlelit shrine hidden beneath an abandoned castle, he removes his mask for the first time. His face is worn, eyes tired, not with age, but with the crushing burden of identity. He places the mask on the altar and whispers, "If blood means power, what does my silence mean?" Outside, the black rain closes in. But the heir no longer runs. He is ready to confront the man who gave him life, and abandoned it. The Ghost General. There is a field west of the Owari province where no crops grow and no birds sing. The locals call it Kurayami no Hara, the Field of Darkness. It was once a battlefield, soaked in blood during the siege of Hoshikawa, where General Heiate no Ryo and his elite division, the Storm Riders, vanished without a trace after refusing the shogun's final order, to burn a civilian village used as a rebel shield. Declared traitors, they were sentenced to historical erasure. Now, a generation later, soldiers stationed near the field are disappearing. Patrols vanish. Horses return without riders. On moonless nights, some claim to see rows of spectral warriors, armor half-burnt, eyes glowing with sorrow, marching silently through the mist. The shogun's advisors panic behind closed screens. If rumors grow, they threaten to undermine the regime's absolute control over the narrative of history. Ghosts are dangerous, yes, but martyr ghosts are treasonous. They send a man to investigate. Akihiko, a government-sanctioned truth-seeker, is dispatched. A former samurai-turned-scholar, he is a skeptic, broken by war and grief. His older brother, Ryo, was the legendary general of the Storm Riders, the very one labeled a ghost, a traitor, a myth. Akihiko does not believe in spirits. But he has spent years carrying the shame of his brother's so-called betrayal, even denouncing him in a public decree to save the family's honor. Now, he returns to the field where their paths last crossed, where Akihiko begged Ryo to obey the shogun, and Ryo replied, "I will not kill the innocent just to live with the guilty." As Akihiko steps into the field, mist curls around him like reaching fingers. He begins to see shadows, glimpses of armor, blades suspended in silence, eyes watching from the trees. At the heart of the field, beneath a withered tree, he finds an altar built from shattered swords. Atop it, a note in familiar handwriting, "Not all traitors are wrong. Not all brothers are right." And then, Ryo appears. Not decayed, not monstrous. Still wearing his storm-patterned armor, his face ageless, exactly as Akihiko remembers. But his eyes carry centuries of sorrow. And behind him, the army, real, not illusion, ghostly but physical, the product of an ancient curse or a spiritual rebellion beyond mortal comprehension. Ryo speaks, his voice low, thunder echoing beneath it, "We waited for justice. Now we march for truth." Akihiko falls to his knees, torn between duty to the shogun and the aching love he still carries for the brother he abandoned. He knows if he returns to the capital with this truth, he risks death. But if he hides it, the cycle of silence will continue. The political implications are terrifying. If the Storm Riders truly walk, then history itself is broken, and with it, the power of those who wrote it. In the dead of night, Akihiko writes a single line in his notebook, "History must bleed to be healed." And behind him, as the wind picks up, the ghost army marches, not to conquer, but to be seen. The burning of truth. The Temple of 10,000 Leaves, nestled deep in the misty hills of Nara, was said to house the largest archive of samurai law and lore, scrolls penned by monks, lords, and warriors across centuries. It was where the code of Bushido was not just revered, but edited, revised, redefined, quietly, through generations, to reflect the needs of shifting regimes. No public scribe was ever allowed into its lower chambers. Until now. Tomo, a humble, quiet scribe from a minor clan, had been called to help with reclassification. He expected to copy scrolls, perhaps illuminate texts. But what he found buried in the stone library was far more dangerous, a hidden vault of forbidden scrolls, original oaths, first edition war journals, treaties signed in blood and erased from modern retellings. He found the truth of Bushido's birth, not as a noble code, but a calculated unification strategy, penned by power-hungry lords to control their samurai and the peasants they governed. The first version of the code even condoned surrender if it preserved the clan. That line was erased centuries ago. The walls of the vault were lined with the names of those who dared to oppose the evolving fiction, scribes, monks, even generals. One scroll, wrapped in silk and sealed in wax, bore the name of Reiku's ancestor, a warrior scholar whose writings condemned the shogunate's manipulation of honor and had vanished without a trace. Tomo knew, if this truth came to light, the entire ideology of samurai virtue would collapse. The warrior class would fracture. The shogun's grip would tremble. And someone else knew too. A high-ranking Lord Inoue, who oversaw cultural preservation for the shogunate, arrived in secret. Smiling. Polite. Merciless. With him, a company of imperial firebearers. Official reason, structural renovation due to rot. The truth, planned incineration. As torches lit the night sky, scrolls burned like dry leaves, centuries of curated history turned to ash. But Tomo, anticipating the worst, had already hidden one scroll. The most damning. Bound in bamboo and slipped inside the hollow spine of a ceremonial Buddha statue in the outer shrine. As flames engulfed the temple, Tomo knelt before the inferno, not in fear, but mourning. His eyes reflected fire, but his heart held a single ember of rebellion. They can burn the words, he whispered, but they cannot erase the memory. Outside, peasants gather at dawn to see smoke rising. They are told it was an accident. But some of them whisper about the scribe who vanished that night. About a scroll that may yet survive. About truth, not written in ink, but in the choices of those who still believe in it. And far away, in a hidden cave, the statue of Buddha watches over a secret waiting to rise. The final revelation, honor was the illusion. Beneath the modern steel of Kyoto's rising skyline, the past stirs, not in silence, but in resistance. Construction workers, digging for a new bullet train tunnel near the foundations of an abandoned Shogun-era fortress, strike something ancient, a crypt sealed in lacquered stone and bound with golden cords. Historians arrive. Then security forces. Then silence. But a leak occurs. And that leak reaches Reiku, now a fugitive, warrior, and reluctant truth-bearer. The whispers say the tomb holds the final truths buried by the architects of Bushido. With the aid of Akino, scarred, hardened, but unbowed, and the masked heir, now revealed as Takashi, Reiku infiltrates the crypt under cover of night. Inside, beneath layers of gold-threaded cloth, they find a war chest of damning artifacts, the unredacted journal of Jinzo, leader of the Ronin coup, revealing not vengeance, but a rebellion to restore the first honest code of the warrior. A letter from the emperor, sealed and weeping with wax, admitting to funding insurgents to manipulate the shogunate from the shadows. The final scroll of Sagan the monk, written in bone ink, predicting the fall of the samurai myth in the age of glass and steel. But what freezes Reiku is a single, cracked mirror placed at the center of the tomb, with a sentence carved beneath it, the last illusion to die, is the one we call ourselves. Reiku stares into his reflection and sees not a warrior, not a son, not a savior, but a man stitched together from lies he was trained to die for. The pain is not in the loss of belief, it's in the realization that he gave his life to protect a ghost. Takashi, burdened by blood he never asked to inherit, kneels and speaks for the first time in days. What do we become, when everything we are was never real? Outside, government officials prepare to declare the site a sealed imperial tomb, untouchable. But Akino steps forward. She opens a hidden channel, broadcasts images and transcripts to the world. She makes the truth uncensorable. Kyoto erupts. Across Japan, shrines once used for state propaganda are filled with flowers and notes, not to honor warriors, but to mourn their manipulation. Protests begin not with fury, but with quiet. Masses sit in silence, heads bowed, hands empty, not holding weapons but mirrors. Meanwhile, the shogun's last loyalist, Lord Hirotaka, orders a final crackdown. But his soldiers falter, some refuse orders, others desert. The army of truth, though weaponless, is vast. In a final scene, Reiku returns to his ancestral village, where the rivers run clear and the cherry blossoms bloom early. He carries no blade. Just the old, torn scroll of his ancestor, the one who was silenced. He hangs it beside his father's shrine. And for the first time, he bows not as a samurai, but as a man free of illusion. Let them call us traitors. At least we will not die as liars. The myth of the samurai doesn't end with blood. It ends with awakening.